In March 2018, I sat in the darkness of my own home in a state of bliss because I knew the very next day I would end the suffering by taking my own life. From the outside looking in, my life looked beautiful. I had everything a person could want, but I couldn't see it. I had become so closed off and disconnected that the only way out was to end it all. But that is not where this story of perseverance begins. In 2012, I got out of the Marines as one of the toughest guys on the planet. But after 3 combat tours that included many explosions, vehicle rollovers, and even hand-to-hand combat, had left me with multiple traumatic brain injuries and even an undiagnosed stroke. But Marines don't show weakness, right? So I did what I was trained to do. I pushed through until it started to catch up with me. Not sleeping? Push harder. Need an adrenaline rush? Find it, whatever it takes. Night terrors so bad they would wake my wife? Bury them deeper and ignore them. I thought if I just didn't say anything, if I just pushed the pain down deep, eventually I would persevere. Until I couldn't take it anymore, and ending it all seemed easier than admitting I needed help. But that night, my wife caught something in my words that made me from executing my plan the next day. And I promised her that I would get help in the morning. That first step became the crack in the armor that I had built around myself. The armor that was built to protect me was actually suffocating me. I'd hit rock bottom, and I knew right then I needed to change. So, what comes to mind when you hear the term perseverance? For many of us, it conjures images of warriors pushing through pain, athletes grinding past exhaustion, and even heroes refusing to quit against impossible odds. Our culture celebrates this relentless drive, and with enough grit, we can get through anything. And for as long as I can remember, I was taught that perseverance was about being unbreakable. Pain is weakness leaving the body. It was a motto of the Marines when I joined. They even gave me a t-shirt that said it. And when it came to surviving in the toughest environments and accomplishing the mission, this mentality was exactly what I needed. But here's the thing about perseverance. What might help you survive in a firefight could destroy you in a fight with depression. Also, our traditional definition of perseverance has a dark side. When we force ourselves to push through every obstacle and make giving up the ultimate sin, we risk something far greater than failure. We risk ourselves. First, there's burnout. When we exhaust ourselves both physically and mentally, we reduce our capacity to recover. And in the traditional definition of perseverance, we ignore our natural limits. Our minds and bodies have boundaries for a reason. When we override these limits, we're not building strength, we're causing damage. But perhaps the most insidious is this idea of toxic positivity, that we have to be strong and stay positive no matter what. This mentality invalidates our struggles, and it even shames us for having them in the first place. But what I've come to understand is that real perseverance is how you engage with that pain, how you navigate those limits, and how you adapt to the circumstances you're facing. My understanding came through years of searching for tools and new ways that it means to persist. And what I came to realize is that true perseverance rests on a system that challenges our traditional definition. The system involves vulnerability, self-love, community, and discipline action. First, we must have vulnerability. And here I have to credit Brené Brown, who revolutionized our understanding of the concept. Yeah. We oftentimes see vulnerability as a weakness, but it's actually one of our greatest sources of strength. Perseverance isn't about hiding from our struggles or pretending we have it all figured out. Real perseverance begins the moment we dare say, "This is tough, I'm struggling, and that's okay." Vulnerability leads to our second part, self-love. Now, before you go dismiss this as some feel-good fluff, let me be clear. This is perhaps the most difficult part of all. Self-love isn't about feeling good when everything is going right. It's about staying committed to yourself even when you feel lost and exhausted. It's also about accepting love from others and realizing that you are loved even when it doesn't feel that way. We've been taught that self-love is selfish and that somehow pushing ourselves past our breaking points is noble. But from what I found through my experiences is the opposite is true. Next, we must take action. Not in a way you might think. Yes, perseverance requires disciplined action, but it's not about blindly pushing forward down a path that's no longer working. It's about making smart decisions that challenge our traditional definition of perseverance. And it's about having the courage to adapt and have the wisdom to work smarter, not just harder. And here's where it all comes together, in community. This is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of perseverance. Our culture celebrates individual achievements and tells stories of lone wolves and solitary heroes. But this isn't how humans are designed to function. Real perseverance is enhanced by the bonds of community. And when we feel isolated or disconnected, our challenges can feel insurmountable. But within a supportive community, we can tap in to the collective strength that carries us through our hardest moments. Now, back to that night in 2018, I was laying there in my bed, holding my kids close, realizing that something had to change. That grit mentality that I had held onto for so long had almost brought my life to an abrupt end. So the next morning, I took my first step in vulnerability and decided to see a therapist. And during one of our sessions, she had me make a list of everybody I thought I loved and that could potentially love me back. And then she told me something I didn't expect to hear, that I could reach out to anybody on that list for help, and they would be there for me. Now, that may sound obvious to you, but to me, in my brain, at that time, it was far from obvious. Because I had been carrying this weight that if I told my friends and family about my past, about what I'd done during the war, that they would see me as a different person or even a monster. But when I finally opened up to them, they not only accepted me, they pulled me in closer and loved me more. They loved me unconditionally for who I was. And if they could love me for just being me, then I could love myself for simply being me. And for years before all of this, I unknowingly found community in a veterans group that cycles down the coast of California. And I had attended these rides in the past as someone there to help others, because I was fine. But in the fall of 2018, I heard a veteran give a metaphor on suicide that completely changed how I viewed the topic. It goes like this. Suicide is like gathering all the people you know into one room, pulling the ones you love the most closest to you, and setting off a suicide bomb. Yes, you take your own life, but you hurt and maim everybody you know and love. Right then, I thought about that list my therapist had me make, and it solidified all the love from all those people, and it changed my desire to take action. So during that ride, I decided to open up to the veterans and share my struggles. And they suggested something that I hadn't thought of, that what I thought was just PTSD was actually traumatic brain injury. So I went home, had an MRI, and the doctors confirmed I had had multiple traumatic brain injuries that I didn't know I had, and they even found evidence of a stroke. Now, I was then diagnosed with a condition called ataxia that affects my balance and coordination. This diagnosis, it wasn't a cure, but it did help me on my journey with self-love and acceptance. Plus, there was a silver lining. Ataxia qualified me for paracycling, and in June 2019, that's right, June 2019, I did my first bike race. June 2019, I did my first paracycling race on a normal bicycle. And I got hooked. I instantly got a coach. I started training. I even set my sights on the Tokyo Paralympic Games in 2020. I was strong, happy, was sleeping through the night, playing with my kids, and the need for therapy had slowed. I had made a 180 from where I was just 2 years earlier. My system was working, and I was crushing at life. Thank you. Then, on May 17th, 2020, my life changed forever. I suffered a second stroke that left me partially paralyzed on my left side and exacerbated my ataxia. Now, this could have easily been my breaking point, but I had already quit one time in my life, and I knew where that path led. I also had this foundation of overcoming something so dark that yes, the stroke would change my life, but it wouldn't end or ruin it. I knew that by relying on my system, I could do well. And the stroke could be a tremendous gift. With this stroke of insight, I could thrive. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Jill, for that one. So I spent the next 9 months in therapy relearning how to walk and driving my therapist absolutely insane by insisting that I had to get back to bike racing. But after 9 months, I still couldn't ride a bike. So my coach and therapist suggested I try a tricycle. So there I was, a former badass Marine, now a partially paralyzed middle-aged man in spandex trying to ride a tricycle. And, yeah, thank you. And you know what? Getting on that trike made me love myself even more because it allowed me to thrive with my new disability. My first step in vulnerability became a journey with self-love. And if I didn't have this system, I would have never had the vulnerability to take the action to try the trike. I was back in the race. In 2021, I entered my first trike race, and guess what? I won. Yeah. I then found myself at the Paracycling World Championships in Portugal, representing Team USA with my eye on gold. And guess what? I got my butt kicked in that race. Yeah. But for the next year, I took the disciplined action to become a better rider and a more fulfilled person. I loved myself for being a new athlete with new disabilities. I leaned into my vulnerabilities, and with the help of my coach, I got faster and faster. I also found myself surrounded by a community of para-athletes that had a wealth of knowledge and were willing to share. Since then, I've won a few races. But the cherry on top that proves that all of this works. Standing on that Paralympic podium in Paris after giving everything. Silver medal around my neck. Staring out at the family that I had almost selfishly abandoned. Because without them, without my family, my friends, my coaches, my community of veterans and para-athletes, I would not be here today. So here's what I want you to thank you. Thank you. Here's what I want you to know about perseverance. It is not about gritting your teeth and pushing through. It is about building a foundation of self-love and vulnerability. It's about taking action, finding community, and being brave enough to let others in. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.